Money on my mind, 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 money on my mind. So money is all I think of. Money on my mind, money on my mind, money on my mind, money on my mind, money on.
All right, and we is on in 3. Oh, we on already. All right, you guys. It is another episode, because money is always on your boy's mind. It's another episode, you guys, of what show are you guys tuned in? Just in case you guys need a reminder, just in case you don't recognize the voice right now, this is Financial State of Mind, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, same thing. This is Financial State of Mind, my lovely audience. This is the show where I help you get to the bag, manage that bag, and grow that bag as best as possible by me teaching you guys financial literacy and talking about all things money. I'm grateful to be here on episode 15, you guys. That's right. It is episode 15. And this episode, what are we talking about today? What are we talking about? Let me get out my pretend notes. Oh, we're talking about real estate. Yes, episode 15, you guys, is going to be about real estate today. So, but before I get to that, I got to get my thank yous out. Thank you to the production staff and team at KGPC 96.9 FM, where you're tuned in right now on this beautiful, most likely, and is probably a cloudy, gloomy Monday morning, 9 a.m., or you might be tuned in Monday, 9 p.m. And if you missed that, you might be listening to it on KGPC969.org or your favorite podcast streaming platform of choice. I just want to thank every one of you guys out there who continue to tune in, or maybe this is your very first time tuned in to the show. I just want to say thank you kindly. Without further ado, we're going to get into real estate, y'all. A topic that many of you guys have been wanting me to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and do that for you guys right now without further delay. So, how does Blickety Blindy himself, Darrin Harvey, the host of Financial State of Minds, know anything about real estate? Well, it is landing on my lap. I'm a homeowner. So that's how I know about real estate. I'm a homeowner because I inherited the property that my parents worked so hard to obtain. A beautiful 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house in Hayward, California. A very nice part of Hayward, California. So that's how I got into it. And I'm going to talk about more later in the episode what I did with that property. But before we get into all that fun, juicy stuff about me, because everybody knows how much of a narcissist I really am, wink, wink, I'm not. Let's talk about what is real estate. On the basic core level, you guys, what is real estate? Well, listener who may not know this, to keep it simple, real estate is the industry of selling or obtaining land and property, and all of the resources that land actually houses. So technically, real estate is the sale of the land. It can be, which can include the gas resources in there, the mineral resources in there, any water on the ground, the soil, all that fun stuff. That's all real estate. But obviously, let's keep it real, you guys. When we think about real estate, we think about the buildings. We think about the houses, the condos, the duplexes, the apartments, the retail space, the office buildings, all those big old office suites, your Facebook building, your Tesla building, your Google campuses. That is all real estate. That is real estate on the most basic level, right? But that's a wide amount of real estate. It encompasses land and property. So basically earth minus the ocean. So let's narrow it down further. Real estate, we can kind of break into 2 categories to keep things simple. Category numero uno, residential real estate. Residential real estate is the one that most people think of, most people want to get into. Residential real estate encompasses any place where a person, a party, a family member, a group of people live. They live there. Their residency is there. They dwell there, whatever word you want to say. Residential real estate is simply real estate or property where people permanently live. So that includes single family homes. That includes multifamily units in homes, which I'll explain that definition in a second. That includes apartment units and stuff like that. This is residential real estate or residential property. Now, there is a difference between single family residence or single family, usually homes, and multi-family homes or multi-family properties, aka residency, real estate, all a bunch of words. What's the difference? So single family property or single family homes is just that. It's a usually home where it's designed for one family to live in. It's a building that is designed for one family to live in. That is the definition of single family property. So usually that's homes. That's usually a house. Multi-family units or multi-family property is a building that is designed to encompass more than one family in that same building. So essentially you're sharing space in the building with another family. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean two families are living in a house or the same housing space. It could mean that the property is divided into two full living spaces. What I just explained as an example is a duplex. It's a building where two families can live in the same property or building. Multi-family units include duplexes. It can also include studios or townhouses or condos. It includes triplexes, duplexes of course, triplexes, and fourplexes. For those who don't know what those are just essentially imagine apartment units where it's just 2, 3, or 4 in the same building space. Of course, there are apartment units, and then there's multiple apartment units where there can be 10, 20, 50, 100 apartment units in one building. Traditionally, the rule of thumb is residential real estate encompasses 4 families or less. And anything above that is residential real estate, but it's now considered commercial real estate because it's for business purposes or it's going to be used for business purposes. So that brings me, ladies and gentlemen, to commercial real estate. Now, what is the definition of commercial real estate? Well, we've already broke down residential real estate, which is property or buildings that are designed for people to live in permanently. So commercial real estate is property or buildings that are built and designed for people to not live in on a permanent basis, usually to operate and run businesses, but not always, but usually that's the case. So examples of commercial real estate is everything that's not home or where you would stay. So that includes, again, like I mentioned earlier, Google's entire campus is all residential real estate. The grocery store that you walk into to buy your groceries, whether that's Wally World, Target, Sam's Club, Costco, could be insert whatever grocery store. That is all commercial real estate. That actually can encompass farmland and agricultural. So all the farmland where farmers are hard at work right now, doing that hard labor of picking crops and making sure that we get nice, beautiful vegetables and fruits. That is all considered commercial real estate too. The office suite that a lot of you guys going to, who are driving to work right now and about to walk into, that is all commercial real estate. Just think of a property or a building where you would do business or do business to make money in. That is commercial real estate. Well, Darrin, what about if I work out of my house? Is that commercial real estate? No, it's residential real estate because you're living there, you're sleeping there. So, but I bring that up jokingly to say, yes, it can be blurred. You can have some crossover. Of course, we know people who literally live in commercial real estate, and we know people who work out of their residential homes and stuff like that. But that's why I framed it as the building was designed for you to sleep and live there, residential. The building was designed for you to do business in there, commercial. That is real estate on its most basic level right there. Now, how do you actually make money in real estate? So for the purposes of this episode, I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking about real estate and kind of teaching you guys the terminology in the hopes that you guys one day will hopefully invest in it. This is not going to be so much about how to buy your first home type stuff, but just giving you that basic real estate 101. But I digress. How is money made in real estate? Well, we can essentially categorize money being made in real estate in 3 facets. Number one, cash flow. So that's simply when you either own a property that you're renting out and the rental amount of money being made is more than the overhead of the entire property. That is cash flow, meaning that property is cash flowing, meaning that property is profiting. So that is the number one way. Alternatively, you can make a cash flow by flipping a house, meaning that you bought a house and then later down the road, you sold it for a profit. That's another form of cash flow. So that's number one, cash flow. Number two, equity. So for those who don't know what equity means just means the value of, we'll just talk in this example, property, and how much of the value or the dollars in the property is yours. So that's just the best explanation of equity. So what are we talking about equity being a reason you can make money in real estate? So understand this concept. Property inherently increases in value over time. So if you bought a property for $500,000 and did absolutely nothing with it, generally speaking, the rule of thumb is if you wait 30 years, that property will definitely be worth more than $500,000 or $500,000. Alternatively, you can do things in a property, residential or commercial, to make the property itself be worth more money or be valued higher. This is where you guys hear the remodeling stories and the foundation changes and blah, 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 all kind of more deeper stuff. But that all changes the value of the property. Now, if you buy a piece of property again for $500,000 and you did nothing with it, and then you waited 30 years, and let's just say that house is now worth $750,000, that means the property value went up $750,000, and if you were to sell that house for $750,000, you would have profited $250,000 for doing absolutely nothing. That's because the equity of the house went up due to appreciation. Now, what is appreciation, Darrin? Appreciation is just simply when the value of the property or any item goes up over time. So property appreciates, you make money, there you go. That's the second way. Number 2.5, which is similar, is when you pay down a mortgage on a property. And for those who don't know what a mortgage is, because some of you guys may not know, a mortgage is the payment on the property, whether it's commercial or residential. So your mortgage is usually on a month-to-month basis, but the whole loan could be 30 years typically. So, like, for example, my mortgage on my home is about $2,300 a month. For those who don't know what a mortgage is, that's what a mortgage is. And what do I mean by paying down your mortgage? Well, let's say you had a rental property and you've had tenants in that property since the moment you bought it. So you bought the house for $500,000 and you're charging your tenants $3,000 a month, but your mortgage is $2,500 a month. So you're making money by, number one, cash flowing, and number two, the value of the property is naturally going to go up over time, most likely. And two, your tenants are paying down the mortgage, gaining you equity because the mortgage is being paid down. That's kind of 2.5. The mortgage being paid down, especially if it's not by yourself, but by tenants, is another way you make money in real estate. And the third reason, or you can count it 4, however you guys want to count it. The third reason that you can make money in real estate is you're not really making money, but you're saving money. And that's through tax deductions, tax write-offs, and tax credits. Real estate is arguably, and I really believe this, it probably is just factually, the number one way to take advantage of tax write-offs and tax deductions. There's more tax codes to give tax deductions and write-offs in real estate than any other industry that I'm aware of at this time of this recording. Things may change in the future, but from what I've learned, understand, and experience, you have way more tax write-offs in real estate than anything else, including traditional business. So those are the 4 ways that you can make money in real estate as far as how the money's being made. Again, cash flow, equity through appreciation and mortgage paydowns, and the savings and taxes are the three ways. We talked about how money is made in real estate. Now, how do you actually make that money we talked about? Well, obviously, you invest in property, so you own the property, right? Well, yeah, that is one way, but that's not the only way you can make money in real estate. So, it's about to get deep, but how do you make money in real estate? Or what are the strategies or the methods that you can make money in real estate? So I'm not kidding you guys, probably a dozen ways you can use real estate to make money. But I'm going to kind of categorize them into about 4 or 5 categories. So number 1, you sell the property. Number 2, you rent the property out, or you rent it out long-term or short-term, meaning long-term is residential tenancy or short-term is lodging, kind of like a hotel. And that's where Airbnb comes in, and I'll explain how that works in a second. Number 3, you can make money in real estate by referring or finding or brokering real estate deals. So people who broker mortgages are basically borrowing money, lending money. They make money in real estate. You can make money by wholesale, which I will explain what that means shortly. You can make money by just finding the property and giving it to an agent, a real estate agent or an investor, and they'll just give you a small cut. That's a way you can make money in real estate. You can actually make money in real estate passively, truly passively, by being a part of crowdfunding, which can be through invested in REITs. I will explain what that means shortly. Or just joining up with either a crowd of people, or it can just be one other person and going in on a property, and they will pay you dividends, or they'll pay you some income from the profit of the property. Those are the 4 or 5 ways money is made through real estate. Now, the actual strategy methods, like the names of them and how they work, I will explain them right now. Let's start with what we guys already know, rental properties. So rental properties, how does that work kind of on a slightly deeper scale? Obviously, you guys understand that, you just lose that example again. If you have a $500,000 property with a mortgage of $2,500 a month, and you rent out that entire house to a single family, let's imagine it's a single family home, and you rent that entire house out for $3,000, you've profited $500, right? Not exactly. It doesn't work that simple. Yes, as far as just counting the mortgage, then you would just be at a profit. But houses encompass much more than just mortgages to operate the home. You got to make sure that the utilities is paid, which includes electricity, water, gas, and trash. You got to make sure that the insurances are paid, which is usually home insurance. There's extra hazard insurance that's unique to the area. So like California, we have earthquake insurance that most of the country doesn't have to deal with. We should have that. We have to, by law, have home insurance. We have to also pay property taxes as well. Those are 3 additional factors that can make up the overhead of the home that people don't consider. And if you put down less than 20%, you could potentially have something called PMI, or property mortgage insurance, which essentially is extra security for the lender that you're going to pay the mortgage, and just in case something happens, the lender is okay, not the buyer. All of these factors encompass the overhead of the house. So if the mortgage is $2,500, but let's just say the insurances and the property taxes and the PMI all add up to $500, then really the overhead of the property is $3,000 a month, and you're renting the property out for $3,000 a month. So you're actually breaking dead even. So you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not making money on the house. Yes, you're not making cash flow, but those tenants are still paying down the mortgage in the house, and your house is appreciating over time, because that's just how property generally works. It goes up in value over time. So you're still actually making money. You're just not making cash flow. So that is one way you can make money in real estate is rental properties. An offshoot of that is Airbnb. Airbnb essentially turns your property into a hotel, or an inn or something like that, where people can temporarily stay because they're vacationing or they have a business conference to go to or whatever reason. And you temporarily let them live in that residency, which could, again, be a house, can be a duplex, can be a condo, whatever that you own. And then you do the same thing. You rent it out for a time being, and I'll obviously clean the house, make sure everything is ready to go for people to stay there temporarily, and you make money that way. Another strategy to make money in real estate, and you don't even have to own property, is wholesaling. So what is wholesaling or wholesale real estate? Wholesale real estate is the business of actually selling the contracts itself from a seller, usually a motivated seller, to a motivated buyer. So let me give you guys an example. I'm a wholesaler, and I meet a seller named John. John is trying to get rid of his house. It's seen better days. It's not exactly uninhabitable, but it's seen better days. He doesn't want to spend his money or spend the time and energy to hire contractors to fix it up. So he just wants to get rid of it. John is 70 years old. He ain't got time for that. He just trying to lay back, chill, and enjoy his twilight years. So I find John, and I'm like, okay, John, I'm going to take this contract and find a buyer for you. This contract is already ready to go. It's crafted. The price is there. The terms are there. Everything's good. So me, Darrin, I take John's contract, and then I find an investor or a buyer named Steve. And Steve is a house flipper. He likes to fix up old houses, make them look nice and prettyful, and then sell them for profit. I know Steve from networking. So I go to Steve and say, hey, Steve, I got a motivated seller. He's ready to close right now. I can take him to you. I can set up the meeting, everything. Here's the contract right here. Would you like to be the buyer of this property? And right here in the contract, it states what's wrong with the property, what's right with the property. I show him pictures, everything. Maybe he wants to visit the property. I help him set that up. He goes, okay, bet, Darrin, cool. I'm going to buy this property off of John because I did the work of finding that deal and bringing him the contract. There is actually value in that contract itself and doing all that work. So I sell him the rights to buy the house. And that sale could be as low as $5,000 typically, or it can be as high as $25,000 typically. So, and it can be anywhere in the range, of course, depending on the agreement between the buyer and the wholesaler, and usually like the value of the property and stuff like that. But that is a great example of wholesaling. And that's a great example of how you can get into real estate without owning property and or having little money to invest into property. Another form of going into real estate is house hacking, which I mentioned earlier. I will state it again. House hacking is when you own a property, live in it, and you sublease space of the property to tenants. And the concept is that those tenants are paying for the majority, if not all of the mortgage. And even in some places, you can cash flow from the amount of rental income that the tenants are paying you. I'm going to talk about in depth about house hacking because that's how I'm in real estate. And I'll talk about how much it's transformed my life later in the episode. Another form of, or another strategy that you can take part of to make money in real estate is, like I said, be a part of crowdfunding, be a part partnerships, multi-members that go in to jointly invest in a property. So the most passive way of doing that is called REITs. And that is essentially the stock market or the stock index, or a stock index, I should say it that way, for investing in real estate through stocks. So there is a investment company, and what they do is they go public, they sell shares of their business to fund money so that they can buy usually commercial real estate property. Most, if not many plazas and malls that you guys are walking into right now in the Bay Area are owned by big investment companies that are funded through REITs. So if I have a REIT or an index fund that is in real estate and I buy 1,000 shares, I will get a percentage of money paid back to me in dividends through those REITs. So that is the most passive way you can possibly take part in the real estate market. So those are some of the ways and some of the strategy and methods that you can use to take part in this beautiful world of real estate. There is more, but we're just going to kind of keep it simple. Now, Darrin, you talked about a method of making money in real estate without having money. Is there really ways of making money in real estate without having any money or very little money? The answer to that is yes, you guys. You guys do not need money to start making money in real estate. Though, unlike a lot of YouTubers or a lot of content creators will not say is, you're definitely limiting your options on the ways you can make money, including the amount of money you can make. Most people who I know who are super rich off of real estate, they put money down. They invest their money into the property and then they get the returns on their investment, hopefully. But you can start in real estate or be a part of real estate without money. I've already explained two ways: wholesaling and kind of referring. So let me expand upon that referring. So again, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, you can be a guy who's just driving around looking for properties to sell or to have somebody buy. And usually, and you guys know this, usually these people are looking for properties under what we call distress and looking for what we call in the industry motivated sellers. So this means that this is a person who doesn't want to take the time or energy to fix up the house and they just want to sell it. So we call those a motivated seller. Or it can be another reason. Maybe they're just, like I said, they need to move out. They need to go somewhere. They have a job opportunity across the country and they need to sell right away because their job starts in 60 or 90 days. These are examples of motivated sellers. So maybe if you're just getting your start in real estate, maybe you're just a real estate agent, you're just starting off, or maybe not even real estate. You can just be driving around town and you do that for 4 hours a day. And literally, you can find a property that looks under distress. Maybe their yard is full of weeds. Maybe the outside of the house is clean. Maybe it's a bad, rough part of the neighborhood. Maybe there's never cars in front of the house. You figure out a way that that house is under distress. You literally, you can even maybe talk to the owner of the home and convince them to just take a call with a real estate agent or an investor about selling his house. If that house is sold at that point, the investor or the buyer could and should compensate you for finding that property because he didn't have to. And again, you can make thousands of dollars, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars just for finding that property. And again, that was no money down on the property itself. You just spent money on gas or your car. That's one way to get into real estate and make money off real estate without putting money down on a property. Okay, Darrin, that's all great ways, but I want to own the property. How do I get into real estate? I ain't got a penny on me and I want to own some property. Okay, let me talk about some creative ways of financing property. We call this creative financing. How unique. So, this is how you get your property and buy your property, cop some property, cop a fourplex with no money down. You go to Bank America. Well, first, before you go to Bank America, you grab yourself a gun. You go to Bank America and you point the gun at the teller and ask her to give you all the money. And hopefully that amount of money is $1 million. And then you can buy that house you've always wanted in Venice Beach, California. is what I would say if I want you guys to get locked up. So let me tell you some illegal ways for you to come up with some creative funding. So in all seriousness, here's a legit way. There's something called joint ventures. This is common in business, and because real estate is a business, this also applies in real estate. So here's an example. Again, I'm Darrin, and I ain't got no money like that. And I am willing to put in the work and time though, and I'm trying to flip houses. So maybe I know someone named Jimmy, and Jimmy is chilling. He's a real estate mogul. He already owns 50 properties, and he's looking to cop property number 51. And I go to Jimmy and I say, hey, Jimmy, I found a property that's under distress. It costs $500,000. I ain't got no money. Would you be willing to go 50-50 on owning the home, and you make the down payment and you make the initial mortgage payments, and then at the end of all of it, and by the way, you're making all the payments, but you're doing nothing. I am working the deal, I am getting the contract together with the agent. I am signing off on the deal. You only have to sign that you're a co-owner, and you only have to put your money down and, obviously apply for the loan. But all the work that comes into flipping the house that's messed up, maybe it needs a new bathroom, maybe it needs new paint, it needs new flooring, there's weeds in the backyard, whatever it is, I manage and take care of all of that. Either I'm the guy cleaning it all up, building it all out, remodeling everything, or I'm the guy hiring all the contractors to do that all for me. I manage everything. I give you budgets. I let you know the day to day, whatever you need to know. I am doing 100% of the work. But we go in 50-50. So then when we flip the house went from $500,000 to $750,000. We did all the work, or I did all the work. You just put the money down. So when we sell the house for $750,000, that's a profit of $250,000. We split that profit 50-50 because at the end of the day, we couldn't have acquired the property without Jimmy's investment money. But because Darrin did all the hard work beyond that, they split the profit 50-50. I share that example because that happens all the time. And again, you are the owner or the co-owner of the home, technically, not the outright owner, but the co-owner. You didn't put any money down other than just your time and your energy and maybe some gas and that Camry that you're driving around. That is a way you can make money in real estate and own the property too without putting a single dollar down on the house itself. Finally, like I said, the third way that I'm just going to talk about right now for creative funding is what is called seller finance or seller financing. Seller financing is when the seller themselves is the lender for the mortgage. So let me give you guys an example. The seller, same situation. Seller wants to get rid of his $500,000 house. He is so desperate and he just wants out of it so bad that he's just like, okay, Darrin, I have a $500,000 home value. There is still $200,000 left on the mortgage. I'm going to go ahead and sell you the home for $700,000. So, and you're like, okay, Darrin, or I'm like, okay, Darrin, cool. I'll take that. Now, he goes and gets a $700,000 mortgage under his name and under his credit and everything. And then I am on the loan as well, but I am paying him directly back. So I'm making all the mortgage payments. I'm paying him because he's still the owner of the home. Now, technically I'm paying the bank, but because he owns the home, then I'm paying him, really. I'm just on there on paper. Or maybe I may not be on there on paper. It can work either way. But the point is the seller went out and got the loan, whether it's through him directly. Maybe he can just write you a contract and just supersede the bank. Or maybe he went out and got the loan through the bank himself. It doesn't matter. The point is that you did not get a loan completely under your own name, yet you could be on the deed of the house. You can own the property of the house. that is another way of putting essentially $0 down initially on the home. So 3 creative ways I just taught you guys how to cop some property without any money down. I will keep talking, but I need to remind you guys that this coffee that I'm sipping on is really, really good. Oh, that's not what I'm supposed to say. I'm supposed to say you guys are tuned in to Financial State of Minds, the show where I help you get to the bag, manage that bag, and grow that bag as best as possible by me teaching you financial literacy. You're tuned in to KGPC 96.9 FM on this beautiful Monday, this gloomy Monday where I can see a lot clearer because of my vision. And you're listening to your favorite blind financial coach, Darrin Harvey. Thank you guys for tuned in. You're learning about financial stuff always. And what I really meant to say is you're learning about real estate in episode 15. So let me keep this episode going because I still got a lot more to talk about. And I'm looking at this clock and I got like 25 more minutes. So, all right, cool. I've talked about real estate. You guys get it. You guys get the methods. You guys get how you can make money, how that actually money is made and is generated. I talked about ways you guys could buy a property. I'm going to quickly talk about loans, real estate loans. So, yes, I've talked to you guys about creative ways to find funding, but traditionally, ladies and gentlemen, the way you buy a property is by acquiring a loan from a bank, credit union lender, or another type of lender that isn't so much private based. Now, there are 4, we're going to talk about 4. There's actually more, but there's 4 types of loans that you can acquire or you can get to buy a property. 4 of them I'm going to discuss. Number 1 is the conventional traditional loan. So this is the loan that a lot of people get. I would say the majority of Americans get, and they get a loan that requires them to put down a 20% down payment to have a good or decent, I would say fair credit score. The fair credit score of about 650-ish, around there. 640 is the lowest they'll go. And then you have to have a certain debt to income ratio. I believe that ratio is your debt, including the home, cannot exceed, I believe, 30 or 40% of your total net income. So that's the traditional loan. And I believe there is no limit to the amount of money you can pull from the loan itself. It's just up to the bank and your credit score and how much money you can get. In layman's terms, you can go out and get a $3 million home with conventional loan. So that's loan number 1, conventional, traditional loans. Loan number 2 is a loan that I'm sure all you guys are interested in learning about, the first time homeowners loan. This loan, along with the rest that I'm going to talk about, all are structured the same way. You have a down payment, you pay a down payment, you have to have a solid credit score, or a credit score, I should say, and then you have to have a certain level of debt to income ratio. So with the first time homeowners loan, and why this loan is so popular and powerful, especially in the Bay Area, especially to all my New Yorkers out there, especially to a lot of people in places where property values are very high, is it allows the buyer to put down a significantly lesser amount on the down payment. How much lesser? It can be as low as 3.5, you guys. Yes. With the first time homeowners loan, you can put down potentially as little as 3.5% of the total home value. On top of that, your threshold for your credit score is generally lower. I believe it drops down to about 580, 600, give or take. Again, depends on market conditions. And your threshold for debt to income ratio is lower. I think you're allowed to do about 40% of your net income can be in debt, or maybe 50%. Could be wrong. The takeaway, though, is it is lesser. You can have more debt. How does this work in a practical loan? So let me give you guys an example. Say you want to buy a $500,000 house at a 4% interest rate. And let's just say, for number's sake, that loan is going to be a mortgage payment of $2,000 a month. Why is that? Because you bought the home for $500,000. You put down a 20% down payment. So 20% of $500,000 is $100,000. That means the mortgage of the amount, or the total amount of the mortgage, is now $400,000. Again, for common sense's sake, it's a $2,000 a month mortgage. Now, with the power of the first-time homeowners loan, instead of putting down $100,000, you put down significantly less. I cannot do the math in my head right away, but let's just say, for conversation's sakes, you're putting down, I think the number is going to be around $16,000. So instead of you paying $100,000, you only pay $16,000. So that makes it tremendously easier for people to acquire property. Now, what's the con about that? The con, ladies and gentlemen, is you now have to pay a higher mortgage, because instead of your mortgage being $400,000, your mortgage is, let's just say that down payment was $1,500, then your mortgage is $485,000. So instead of your mortgage being $2,000, it's going to be more than $2,000. It's probably going to be closer to like $2,500, but I could be wrong. I'm not the best at math. But the concept is, yes, your down payment's lower, but that made your mortgage higher. On top of that, we have to think about property mortgage insurance, meaning that because you did not put down the 20% requirement, there is going to be an extra tax, essentially, literally an extra bill, because you didn't put down 20%. So overall, your monthly mortgage is higher, even though you paid down on a down payment and you got yourself the property. There's pros and cons to both loans. Now, the third loan that I want to discuss is the VA or Veterans loan. This is probably my favorite loan. This is the loan that allows you to acquire property with zero payment down, $0 down. And on top of that, there's no PMI attached to it, even though you put down less than 20%. Your mortgage is still going to be ridiculously high. So if you put down $0 down on a $500,000 house at 4%, it's probably going to be a $2,500 or more mortgage per month. But again, you have no PMI and you got yourself the property. So you can rent it out, you can live in it, raise your family, whatever you want to do, you got it. Those are the big three that most people are going to see. There's a fourth one that I'll quickly talk about. It's called the USDA loan. And essentially, the USDA, if you guys don't know, that's agriculture. That's the agriculture department. So the VA loan, the first-time homeowners loan, and the USDA loans are all loans that are supported and backed by our federal government. So for the USDA loan, this is a loan that is for people who want to live in rural America or farmlands, or essentially areas of America across the nation that is not really populated. It's rural America. This is based off of your income and the location of the property. No, guys, sorry, you're not getting a USDA loan and you're trying to buy a property in Calabasas. It's not happening. It's not even going to happen in Irvine, LA, or San Francisco. Quite possibly Humboldt County somewhere, Weed, California. Maybe you may able to use it up there. But again, it's designed to help and encourage people to move into rural parts of America. And there is a limit for all the loans minus traditional on the amount the loan can be for the property of the house. So again, you're not buying a first-time homeowner's loan for $3 million home, and you're not buying a USDA loan. Sorry, you're not getting a USDA loan to acquire property that's worth $3 million. It's not happening. Those are the four main types of loans, and then the loans can be structured in several ways too. The most common three that I'm going to talk about, but there's more, is the 30-year fixed loan, the 15-year fixed loan, and the 5-year fixed, and then 5-year variable loans. So what are those, Darrin? So a 30-year loan, which is the most common type of property loan or home loan you can get, is where you're paying a fixed payment and a fixed interest rate every single year for 30 years, the first starting month number one, day number one. The same is true for 15-year fixed loans, but that payment is usually doubled compared to the 30-year loan because obviously you're paying the home out or the property out in half the time. Now, what is a 5-year fixed, 5-year variable loan? So the concept of this loan is for the first 5 years, your loan has a fixed interest rate of, let's say again, 4%. But after year 5, once year 6 enters, your loan interest rate can potentially increase or decrease. And then for the next 5 years, it's going to be that percentage rate. So maybe it increased to 5% because of the market. So now your loan is at a 5% and therefore your mortgage payments actually increased. But maybe the next 5 years is like that. But then the 5 years after that, the market got a lot better. Maybe 2020 pandemic better for buying houses. And all of a sudden your interest rate is at 2%. So now your mortgage rate is lower. And you do that for every 5 years until your property is paid off. I'm a fan of the 30-year fixed rate because you know exactly what you're going to pay every single month for the next 30 years. But if you feel like the market is going to dip or you want to take your chances or maybe your interest rate end up being better because of it, you can try the fixed variable rate as well. But I just want to talk about those three so you guys understand kind of the structure of the loans as far as that, and then the main 4 types of loans you can get. But for most of you guys listening, it's primarily going to be a conventional traditional loan and a traditional first-time homebuyers loan. Now, there is something called non-traditional loans. This can be for people who have very poor credit, or this could be for people who do not have W-2 jobs and they're self-employed. So just to put this information out there for all my people who are trying to be business owners or who are currently entrepreneurs, business owners, got side hustles, and they only make income through 1099, W-9s, LLCs, whatever. It is much more difficult to acquire property when you are a self-employed person compared to if you have a W-2. This is because the lenders traditionally want to see that you've made money consistently and stably when you're self-employed compared to when you are W-2. I don't know why they think that way, but that's just the way it is. Because of that, traditionally, you need to have 2 years of consistent paying profitability when you are self-employed, whether that's a 1099 or an LLC. 1099 wouldn't be profitability. That's just 2 years of you working in the same capacity. And then LLC, you have to have 2 years of profitability. So, and it has to be that amount that they're looking for as far as the income debt ratio, the net income. It gets much more difficult when you are self-employed. That's why a lot of people sometimes just have W-2 jobs just so they can acquire property. It's much easier because when you're W-2, and especially if you're a W-2 and you've been in the same industry for years, you've been a sales rep, you've been an accountant, you've been an HR consultant, you've been a radio host, you've been a designer, you've been an editor, whatever that is. If you've been in it for several years, sometimes your lender is only going to need literally 60 days of proof that you've been working there, or 30 days, or usually what I've heard is 2 to 4 pay stubs. Once you show them that, you're good. That's the income proof you need, and you are good to go. So I'm going to end it on this question, answering this question. Why is it so difficult to buy property in the Bay Area? Why is it so difficult to buy property in New York? Why is it so difficult to buy property in America as a whole right now? Well, as I'm sure you guys know, because of our inflation problem and the government choosing to combat it by increasing the federal rates, interest rates are at an all-time high for buying property. Right now, the last time I checked as I was recording, the average interest rate for a property being bought right now is over 7%. It's around 7.5 actually. If you have an amazing credit score, you might be able to get it at 7, maybe slightly lower, but the average person, you get it at 7.5. Think about all the factors that I've already talked about and add the interest rate. So just to give you an example, again, take that $500,000 house that I told you was at 4%. Now add in 3% extra interest, or let's make it double it. Let's just say it's 8% interest rate because maybe your credit score isn't the best. So now instead of your property, with assuming you put nothing on the property, So now your property mortgage is $500,000. It would have been $2,500 if it was 4%. But now that it's 8%, it could go all the way up to $3,000 a month plus. That's how interest rates affect your mortgage, just the interest rate. And then on top of that, being in the Bay Area that we are, being in California that we are, shout out to New York. You guys have similar problems in the New York, Manhattan borough area. The value of the property itself is insanely high. Obviously, we all know living in the Bay Area, these houses are millions of dollars. These houses are $750,000, $800,000, $900,000, dang near $1 million. So you're going to have to come in with a deep down payment, especially if you come in the traditional route. 20% of $1 million home is $200,000. How many of you guys have $200,000 lying around to put down on a house? Oh, wait. Didn't think so. Probably none of you guys. Maybe one raise your hand. And for you, what are you doing? Reach out to me. I need some help. Give me some money. But even at 3.5% of $1 million home, I believe I do the math correctly, is $35,000. How many people have $35,000 lying around? Much more maintainable, but that's not something most of you guys, I'm sure, lying around having. So it's important that I talked about the factors that make up a loan, because now you understand why buying property as a whole, whether it's residential and you just want a home, whether it's for investment purposes to rent it out, or maybe you want to do some flipping, or maybe it's just because you want to be a tenant or you want to be a landlord and rent out to businesses. This is why the real estate game can be very difficult in the Bay Area. So you guys, I'm going to end it right here. There will be a part 2 to this episode. Maybe the next episode's going to be part 2. Maybe not. Haven't figured that out so far. But real estate is something I'm also very passionate about. As I've told you guys, I house hack, meaning I sublease the house that I live in. I live in the master bedroom. I rent out the other 3 bedrooms. And the concept is, as long as everyone pays me back on time, I live in my house for free. And that is so powerful, and it saved me so much money. But I'll talk about my struggles, and I'll talk about how that has not been 100% smooth, but it's been totally worth it on the next episode of Real Estate, which I will talk about maybe next episode, 2 episodes down the road. Maybe I get some interviews in for you guys. I'll let you guys know. Where can you find out? Follow me on Instagram. DM me. Tell me, Darrin, I want that part 2. Keep listening on KGPC 96.9 FM on Mondays. Go to the website, kgpc969.org. Keep going to Spotify. Keep going to Apple Podcasts. Keep going to wherever you want to listen to this podcast. Why? Because Blindy himself is here to help you get to the bag, manage that bag, and grow that bag as best as possible by teaching you guys and talking about financial literacy and all things money. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 15. Love you guys. Peace, keys, and queens. I'm out of here. I need to get some food and make some more money so I can buy property numero dos. I'm out of here. Peace.
Money on my mind, so money is all I think of. Money on my mind, money